Ignore that. Even though every white guy impulse in me wants to continue the singing of the song. You want to hit the start timer on there? You want to hit? You want to start podcasting, genius?
Hey, Biff, do zombies eat popcorns with their hands?
Do zombies eat popcorns with their hands? I don't know, Jacques.
No, they eat the fingers separately.
Next.
All right. Hey, what do you call a pumpkin? Who does stupid things, Biff?
But what do you call a pumpkin who does stupid things?
A jack-ass-o'-lantern.
Joe! Joe! Where's Joe? I'm going to say incantation right now. And I'm going to hope that Joe arrives. Okay, ready? Joe. Joe. Joe! I guess he's not coming. He's not coming.
So in your world, Biff sounds like Gilbert Gottfried.
Yes, he does. All Japanese people sound like Gilbert Gottfried to me.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Carnival Personnel. I'm Jacques.
And I'm Biff. No, I'm just kidding. I don't want to confuse the people. This is your old pal, Joe. Biff was, I don't know, did his visa run out? Or no, he's a citizen, right?
No, but he just wised up. No, he texted just before we recorded our sideshow. It's like, dude, is there any way I can bail? I started work at 3:00 this morning, and I'm like, yes, it's more than okay. So we are Biffless, we are rudderless, but Joe and I will persevere. Joe, since I haven't talked to you in 10 minutes, how are you?
Just dandy. Everything's fine. I couldn't be happier. Everything's fine.
We just recorded a sideshow. Joe and I saw a comedy show at the prestigious Mill Number 5 in Lowell last month. Mondo Comedy, which do you want to do a whole bit on the lighting of Mondo Comedy? But with a comedian, Jim Colleton. He
himself says that nobody can remember his name.
So that's why his website is Jim What. And he's on all the socials, seriously, as Jim What. Really, really nice guy, funny guy. I bored Joe. We bored Joe. We'll bore everybody when it drops next week, because it turns out that Jim and I were at the same college at the same time, both on the ice trying out for the Fitchburg State hockey team. His wife was in TV production the same time I was in film production. It's a tiny school. But it was it drops next week. It should be a fun listen. Jim, headlined that show that Joe and I saw, like I said, did great crowd work. What do you think of our chat with Jim?
I think it was great. I liked all the Fitchburg talk. I was hoping to get more like old Fitchburg stories that I haven't heard. But unfortunately, I think you've told all the Fitchburg stories that you could possibly remember.
Both of them.
Yeah.
That's why I would love some old Fitchburg pals to come on, and my friend John and I hung out one night, and John was having me tell stories and correcting them. As I forget where we were, having a couple.
It was like
beers.
A restaurant, yeah.
He's like, well, that's kind of how it happened, Chuck. But what you actually were doing that night,
right?
was...
It's like Rashomon, except drunker.
So Halloween is tonight, Joe. Big plans.
I'm gonna dress up as a Ghostbuster. and then I don't know, just I guess stay in the basement.
Well, no, I'm not talking every other night of the year. What are you doing special
No,
for
that's it. Yeah,
Halloween?
that's it.
Do you guys get trick or treaters down that dark
Not.
alleyway, crime alley that you live at the end of?
I wish it was Crime Alley. I could do more crimes. No, we don't get many of that. I guess maybe it would help if I turned on the porch light, like on on Halloween night. Uh, yeah, I guess because of COVID last year, we didn't get a whole lot. I don't know. It was weird. Tonight, now that Halloween is on a Monday night, that's kind of a buzzkill too. So I don't know. Maybe we'll have a better turnout this year.
So this isn't my parenting tip, but I'll let you weigh in on the parenting. So my oldest, who's 15, decides he's going to go with this certain costume, and an old friend of his who we haven't seen in a while, same age, who lives another town over, his mom and that kid and his brother came to our house for a pumpkin carving party last week. That kid is wearing a costume that coincides with my son, and it is Walter White and Jesse Pinkman.
Hmm.
And it's like, are we okay letting our 15-year-olds go out as New Mexico's number one and number two?
Yeah, why
King?
can't they dress up like hockey mask wearing murderers like the good old days? Like the pure wholesome stuff. Like the guy who appears in your dreams that with a razor blade laden glove. The wholesome family friendly costumes.
Point point taken. Thank you for talking me off, Lord. And I did. I went to a Halloween party at our friend Tom Rogan's house, who owner of Good Now Chocolate, who's done the podcast, and he has an old farmhouse in Sudbury where the chocolate factory is, and I asked him if he flew in set designers from LA because it was spooktacularly awesome. You
Wow.
see what I did there? Really had a
Trademark.
nuts. There you go. And right now, because everybody wants to know, management, my current wife is on her, I think, final leg of it's got to be the final leg of the Year of Duran Duran 2022. She right now is in Vegas. They played last night. They're playing a Halloween show tonight. And then she's seeing them at a casino somewhere between Vegas and LA on Wednesday. And then I think it's Saturday night, seeing them inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Wow. Is she inducting them?
Dude, look, if they don't give her at least a shout out, so it will be like the seventh city, fourth country that she's seen shows just this tour. But in 2018, when they announced, in 2022 or in 2020, we're doing a 40th year anniversary, she started saving up. So she had 2 extra years. Thank you, COVID.
Luckily, your kids have no chance of getting into any college, so you don't have that to worry about as a financial burden.
Now that ITT Tech isn't around, maybe they got to shut up Barberson. Like, I don't know if they want to be models
or just look like one.
We are so stupid. So you know what? I'm jumping down to the next thing that I had on the list. Joe and I are so stupid. It hurts. But
how stupid are?
But we're a happy little,
we're champion spellers. Let's just put it that way.
It's so. As we've been talking on the podcast the last several months, when management goes away, usually on these Duran Duran, journeys.
She runs from the house. Now I'm workshopping stuff. I'm sorry.
Joe comes over and we watch old movies. We watch new movies that we haven't seen together. But lately we've been spiraling. And, last time he came over, we watched probably one of the worst episodes of Johnny Carson, and it starred Steve Martin, and we loved every horrible minute. But Joe came over a couple weeks ago, and for an audience of 2, we fell down the TV-38 rabbit hole. And I honestly don't know anybody who even knows the shows that we watched. Joe, for Guitar Center Scotty, why don't you tell everybody what TV-38 was and what we watched?
TV 38 was an independent station. It's still on. It doesn't have an affiliation anymore, but back in the 80s, it was the go-to local Boston independent station for stuff like Red Sox games, Bruins games, and they had their own like kind of like mini culture there. They had a guy named Dana Hersey who would host a nightly show called The Movie Loft, because every night at 8 o'clock, because they didn't have a network affiliation, there was a UHF channel. Kids, Google UHF, you'll have a blast, and you'll find Weird Al's movie when you Google it. Anyway, the local movie host Dana Hersey became a personality unto himself, and because they were starved for original programming or any programming, they would put on this show that kind of took you behind the scenes to the inner workings of TV 38, and it was called Ask the Manager, where before social media and before the internet, viewers would write in, on postcards to the station, and the Dana Hersey and the general manager of the station, whose name escapes me right now, would read, sit at a desk in a fake office and just sort of read from these postcards, like, why don't you show more Cary Grant movies, or why is you were actually wrong on this little factoid about this 1940s movie you showed 3 months ago. And they would just sort of address questions, but they'd also like bust each other's chops. In the particular episodes that we watched, Jacques, Dana Hersey took on the role of the manager, and in the actual manager's absence, and filling in his seat was local broadcast legend Sean McDonough, who I think was the ripe age of 25 or something when he was doing that show.
23, 24. And his dad was a very prominent sports writer. But Sean McDonough, I don't even know if he had started doing Red Sox games at the point, or maybe he was just starting his broadcast.
And Jesus, career. Didn't that guy ever have hair?
Never, never.
But so Dana Hersey was just sort of like this. He would wear his tweed jacket with the suede patches, and he would just sit there tapping a pencil, kind of like very David Letterman-esque, and he would just sort of rip into Sean for not reading the questions properly, or just busting his balls in general, making fun of his tie, just like a real like a bully would, like a real pompous ass bully would.
The funny thing is, some of these letters were like 6 pages long. Like, people in the early 80s would just write letters to the manager of this independent UHF station. And my favorite ones were because sometimes Dana Hersey, in his bullying of Sean, would make him hold up or show the camera the letters where, I don't know if it was a production assistant, I don't know if McDonough did it, would highlight
the entire letter. Instead of just the highlight, instead of literally highlighting the best parts or the parts you want them to read, it's basically, just the first 3 chapters of War and Peace. If you could just highlight those and have them read on the air, that would be fantastic. That'll eat up a good 15-minute chunk.
They also had this show, and I don't know how long it ran. I don't know how many episodes are out there, but Joe and I very much enjoyed a show called We Don't Knock. Why don't you bring up, why don't you tell Paul Ruger about, well, Paul Ruger might actually remember, the blind squirrel might actually remember, because he's a couple years older than us, and it, he didn't move out to LA till a couple years before I did, so he was ground zero at the height of TV 38. But bring out the good people into what We Don't Knock was.
We Don't Knock was another Dana Hersey hosted show on TV 38, where the premise of the show, and I think we talked about this in the podcast before, and then, by the way, all of this was introduced, the show We Don't Knock was reintroduced into my universe by a guy who does a podcast, the TV guidance counselor. This guy named Ken Reed is a comic in Boston. But so check out more of Ken Reed stuff. If you want to hear like nerdy Boston-oriented TV musings, check out Ken Reed's stuff on TV Guidance Counselor. Shout out to Ken Reed. Anyway, We Don't Knock is, yeah, Dana Hersey would go with his camera crew to various hotspots in Boston. And the premise is that they didn't arrange his arrival ahead of time, and he would just sort of go with with this sort of guerrilla style camera crew into, say, WBCN in Boston. And it was so, I guess, off the cuff that they didn't even have the right directions to get to
Yeah, they
WBCN.
couldn't find WBCN
They
one
couldn't
day.
find WBCN. They had the address or something like that. Maybe they just like, it had a street name and Boston, and it was like, okay, we know it's on Boylston Street. So they pull into this gas station where, if you're from Boston, you know where this gas station is still there. It's on the corner of Boylston, and I think it's Kilmonarch. It's like right before Storrow Drive. It's past 3 Dunkin' Donuts. Take a wicked right at the kid selling fireworks. And this segment is them pulling into the gas station and asking guys, "Hi, I'm Dana Hersey. I'm looking for WBCN. Does anybody know where WBCN is?" And then the guy wouldn't speak English all that well. So then they would have another guy come in and it's like, "Yeah, it's right over there." And it's like, "Oh, thanks a lot. By the way, I'm Dana Hersey with with TV 38. We're just looking for WBCN. Do you want to fight, by the way? Because I'm Dana Hersey."
I guess Dana Hersey had a rep of going around to bars in Boston saying, "I'm Dana Hersey. Let's fight."
So the episode we watched is with him like busting in on Charles Laquadera's Big Mattress Show, which was an institution on Boston radio, WBCN 104.1, which is now probably, I think they just have dial tones now.
Look, there's a great documentary, WBCN truly, and Charles Laquadera changed radio probably more than any other DJ and station in history. I mean that. There's a great documentary about WBCN. But get back to Dana Hersey and walking into restaurants and eating people's food.
Yeah, he would go to like the restaurant above the Rathskeller, right? Am I remembering?
Yeah. That's it.
And yeah, they were having ribs, and he was just going up to people's tables and going, "Hi, I'm Dana Hersey. I'm going to take a rib off your plate. Do you mind if I take a rib off your plate? Hey, Charlie who runs the camera, have a part of this woman's ribs that are, she paid good money for them, and we're going to just take them right off her plate." And him trying to like haggle with the bouncer to get downstairs with the camera crew. And it was just wild. And it was, real avant-garde kind of stuff. But there also were produced sketches too.
Yes. And one of the sketches that we saw, the Briefs versus Boxer Fashion Police one, we ended up seeing, like, was it like 2020 or like some national show?
TV's bloopers and practical jokes with Dick Clark and Ed McMahon. They had a segment where they would show local comedy, and we saw the original airing, and then we saw Dick Clark or Ed McMahon introducing the same segment later in this montage that we were watching.
And because Joe and I have that kind of time, we fall down the rabbit hole of, I wonder whatever happened with this actress who's on this sketch-ish show on an independent UHF channel in 1983, and then just find out.
I'm not going to brag, but I think she follows me on Twitter now, so or at least I follow her. No, I don't know. Yeah, it's amazing. And then in that Charles Laquadera segment, you see a young Billy West, voiceover legend Billy West, who went onto the Stern Show not long after that segment. But then there was also that segment where on Ask the Manager, where they literally had Dana Hersey with a handheld mic go through the annals of the station and just show you, like, this is the editing bay. This is where all our archived footage are. This is like a desk where on Ask the Manager, I was bumping my knee against the side of the desk here. So we just hollowed out this portion of the desk. So he didn't initially hollow it out. He busted it in with his foot, like, cause it was, it's made out of like pre-IKEA wood, and then they, did a better job of making it more comfortable for him. But it's just fascinating, like just above public access level production values. And I wanted to live in this universe. I didn't want to leave.
No,
it was like watching the Beatles get back. Like I didn't want to leave the Ringo's side or Paul and
What do you
John's
mean? There's
side.
only 7 hours to this documentary? I thought it was, and Joe and I were watching it and we're laughing and we're thinking, who else? Like, is there anybody else on a Saturday night? Like I mean, like Joe and I, our kids are old enough. Like, if we want to go to a bar and hang out, if we want to go see something, if we want, but I don't think we want it to be any place else other than sitting there and just sharing the moments of watching that stuff.
I don't think the YouTube algorithm knows how to program for me because they're like, we have nothing to compare this to. We don't know what you're into. Do you want to watch beheading videos? Is that what you're into, Matt? We don't know.
Yes, going from the Dana Hersey kicking out the desk and getting in trouble for it, but then they fix the desk and then unfix it for him so he can get his knees done. And we're just howling the whole time. It was, you shouldn't have that much fun watching something that benign. But hey, there you have it. If I could find the old segment, I would play it right here before we start this. Joe one time boxed me into a corner with a little game he liked to call "How Racist Is Jacques?"
Basically, this is a game that anybody can play.
Chadwick Boseman. So there we go. Now, that said, I had another brush with am I a racist the other day? Because I'm not a real manly man and we've only had the pool for 5 years and I'm not comfortable with, am I closing this right or am I going to fuck up the time-space continuum? We were looking for a pool person to come and the person who's closed our pool for the last few years doesn't work for that company. That company doubled its rates. So I'm on different apps like Angie's and this thing called Thumbtack trying to find pool people. This one pool guy writes back saying, oh, yeah, I can come out, blah, blah, blah. This is a rate. Does this day work? And I wanted management to be here so I wouldn't have to play the telephone game or explaining, like, how they did it. The guy shows up, black dude, and as I see them walking down the side of the house, I get management. We go to meet them in the pool, and he's introducing himself, and I'm like, yeah, I think you came out a couple years ago when we were trying to fix his pump, and we end up getting a new one. He's like, no, I don't think I've been here. I'm like, okay. And in my head, I'm like, oh, fuck. Does every black guy with dreads look the same to me? Am I that guy? And then, my wife said, when I said, oh, my name's Jacques, he goes, oh, I have a cousin named Jacques. I'm like, I swear to God, dude, I think you've been here because I have not a very, very common name. And we had a black pool guy. I didn't say this to him, but in my head, I'm like, we had a black pool guy who came here before has a cousin named Jacques. And then I said, oh, so how did you get into the whole pool thing? He goes, oh, growing up, my uncle had a pool company. I'm like, dude, you've been here. And I told him, I'm like, yeah, I remember you said your uncle and then you've been doing this. He goes, yeah, oh, you know what, I think. And I'm like, wait, is he the racist? Do we all look the same to him?
I was going to say, it would be funny if he ended the conversation. Hey, I'm sorry, man. All white guys look alike to me, so.
And look, he would not be wrong. I'm still doing the stand-up thing, been going out to Ralph's in Worcester, and there's like 15 people. 8 of us my mom could not pick out of the police lineup. It's like all scruffy bearded, hat wearing, chunky white guys. I mean,
right. You all look like you co-owned Miramax at some point.
So, but I did in my head when I first said, dude, I think you've been here. Like, oh yeah, I remember this dude. I'm not racist. Completely a different black guy. And then I go through that whole drill in my head of like, oh, okay. Then I'm like, yeah. So who's a racist now?
Right. So did you kick him off the property?
Oh, did you?
You don't stand for racism.
But that was a fun thing. And it's again, cut it close because management want to have the pool open for our annual pumpkin carving, party here, and it's fun. And last year it was 80 degrees. It was one of those weird, for some reason, the week before I was going out at 1 a.m. just to make sure the pump was on so the pipes wouldn't freeze. Mm-hmm. And then the day before the day of the party, it was 80 degrees and it became a pool party. And, and kids are awesome. It's like, well, I didn't bring my bathing suit, but can I go in your pool in my pants? Sure. If your
Yeah,
parents are cool with it, we're cool.
right.
With it. And so for the aesthetic, because it looks nicer being open, she didn't want to shut it. And it was not an 80-degree day. It was about a 55-degree day, but somehow a bunch of kids wound up mid 60s. But it's been cold. Anyways, we closed it. All good. The next day it hit 30 degrees, like, at night. I'm like, yeah, thank gosh we did this. And no one
Mm.
cares about that. But people do care. And you and I haven't talked about this, Joe, or Biff, whichever we're calling you. Elon Musk taking over Twitter. What are your thoughts?
Hmm. I'm cautiously optimistic. No, I don't know. I mean, people were saying Twitter was a dumpster fire. The people on Twitter are tweeting that Twitter is a dumpster fire, and they put up with it anyway, or they shout into the wind, and or tweet into the wind, and they're still on Twitter. So I mean, I don't know. I guess there's a new movement among lefties to go to this other app called Tribal, Trible, I think it's how it's spelled. And I'm like, I don't know, maybe I'll check it out, but it seems like there are going to be some like very hard line like progressives who are going to be like, yeah, I'm not putting up with the potential influx of anti-Semitism and N-wordism that's going to be allowed under the guise of free speech, and possibly the kind of like at the end of Skywalker, the Rise of Skywalker, they're bringing back Emperor Palpatine. They're going to maybe bring back
Shit
Donald Trump.
stain. Yeah.
Yeah, shit stain deluxe. And I don't know. Maybe Donald Trump is too proud to come back. He would never come back.
So the things. First of all, I for a long time have been in the camp that, hey, Elon Musk is a real fucking piece of shit. I've been, his SpaceX thing, great. He's done some great things, yes, of course. But overall, I'm in the camp that, well, the guy inherited his money on the back of apartheid labor in South Africa. Um, every chance he gets to not be funny and to be weird and to be a complete douchebag, he takes. And I could just cite all kinds of examples, but the only example you need is on the first day, the first person he fired is the person who made the decision to throw, Donnie Four Scoops off. The woman who banned, Donnie Four Scoops for life was the first person he fired. He wanted to make sure, and he tweeted that out. He wanted to make sure. And then he posted pictures of people who got fired, being escorted out, like carrying their, boxes. Here's your empty paper box. Get the fuck out.
So
And
he's tweeting pictures of them leaving in with their boxes and tweeting pictures of himself coming in with a fucking sink.
dude, he's,
Let that sink in was his tweet. I think that was what he was going for. I thought it was sort of like he brought everything, including the kitchen sink, to Twitter. I don't know what he was going for.
but
I know that we all had a sinking feeling when we saw.
oh. But seriously, and right away you had, Marjorie Taylor Greene saying, "Just wait till tomorrow." It's like,
Did we hear this sort of like same thing like on January 5th?
yeah,
like, just wait till tomorrow. Wait,
yes.
what's happening? What's happening?
Well, that's it. I mean, it's like, okay, is there culpability? I mean, just in the past week, last week, Nancy Pelosi's husband was attacked in his home as the assailant was looking for her. Like, that's like as scary as we thought it was going to be. It's getting there, and as free speech is as hate speech is now free speech again under this guy's rule. I'm very worried about what happens next.
And by the way, I mean, we do have to remember, and I know this is terrible, but Twitter is a private company. They're not beheld by the same standards of free speech. I don't know. Maybe it's weird, like, because that same argument. I don't like hate speech. I don't think it is free speech. However, their their own company. It's not the government. I don't know. I guess if you're against the practices of Twitter, you don't just bitch about it on Twitter. You just fucking leave, right? And you go to another place, right? Is that it?
Well,
Or
so that was the thing when Johnny Forest Groups got thrown off and a lot of people left, and that's so this new app, is that the left, is that the MSNBC answer of Parler?
pretty
It's like
much.
it's like Parler, but no, I mean, if the New York Times came out tomorrow and said go kill a Democrat of your choice, like you cannot do that, even though the New York Times is a private company, you can't incite riots. You can't incite, all these things that, yeah, and that's what
Well,
this free
that's
speech
and
is headed towards.
that's where it's crazy because you're not just like the New York Times hires journalists to write for on behalf of the New York Times. They're all sanctioned writers. They're on the payroll. This is just sort of like a hey everybody, you get a microphone and you get a microphone and you get a microphone and anybody can post
What about me,
anything they want.
boss?
Right. And so it's up to the company to police that sort of thing if they want to like be a viable company because I mean, bottom line, ad if he wants this to be just sort of like this little toy that he uses for the next 5 years where he doesn't like fuck the ad money and just let people say what they want because of the lulls, fine, but it's not a viable business practice. I mean, you're gonna drive away advertisers, and they're the fucking backbone of Twitter. And you know what? Shit stains, the MAGA shit stains that are gonna like that love spewing the N word aren't gonna pay, $5 a month, $10 a month for the privilege of having that ability to say what they want. Like they'll just move on to the next free platform if they're going to be charged. You know what I mean? Like, so the company has to make money. It's either going to make it with the subscribers or ads. And, you know, if they're going to make it with ads, you can't you're going to have to police some of the free speech because the ad people are going to be like, look, man, I don't want my ad to be run between two, anti-Semitic rants on
Well,
somebody's feed.
that I mean, the scary thing is the first big banned person that was publicly let back on is that rapper. I don't even want to say their name anymore, but who over the last couple of weeks have been calling out to kill Jews, like actually. And when was questioned about it, doubled down on, yeah, that's what I meant. Like, and now you're seeing people hanging signs over the 405 in Los Angeles. And so somebody like him, who, yes, got dropped by his agent, got dropped by his sneaker company, got dropped by this person,
Got
dropped
dropped
by
by
his label,
Goodwill.
oh my God. And when I saw that on SNL, I'm like, that can't, is that, how does, really? Like Goodwill dropped him.
Well, that's
Like,
sort of an empty thing. It's kind of like, well, we won't take donations from Kanye anymore. It's like, okay, great,
but
fine.
if you're letting somebody like that go out there and spout that, and some fan or some follower or some White Lives Matter person who is now saying, oh, well, this black guy told me, I should kill Jews, so I just did, it's like, yeah, there is. And the interesting thing is, yes, it's a private company, but it's a private company worldwide. Other countries have all these laws too. So, what happens here, doesn't fly in so many other places. And just look, the overall douchebaggery, he bought a company that people thought was like valued at about a quarter of what it was. Dude, if you got $44 billion, solve home. Don't go on your platform now and shit on the governor of California because there's so many homeless people there. You could solve homelessness with $44 billion. You could solve children hunger worldwide for $44 billion.
Well, there is also, yeah, there's going to be the concern about how Elon Musk's algorithms will sort of alter the way people do business on Twitter and how other businesses are perceived on Twitter, like rival businesses. Like, there's conflicts of interest galore with Elon Musk running Twitter. So like he's gonna have to abide by like FTC trade, FTC regulations, and
Right.
there's certain things that he can't say because of a conflict of interest. But of course, I guess if you have enough money, you can say any sort of wacky thing you want, and no, you won't get any repercussions. Maybe he has to, run for. Maybe that's it. Maybe he's using this as a platform to run for president someday. I don't know.
Well,
Like
he
what's the end
would.
game for this?
Well, that's the thing, and I think you're right, and that's why, like people like Elizabeth Warren, the the true love of my life, uh, she wants to deem she wanted to deem Facebook like 5 6 years ago a public utility, that it should be regulated. Like if something's going to have that much effect on the landscape of politics and the public discourse and stuff like that, just like there are all kinds of laws that radio stations have to follow and TV stations have to follow, that they want it to treat it like a public utility. And it's like, yeah, you can, you know, you know, it can be privatized, of course, and the energy companies being privatized has been nothing but a great thing for this country the last 30 years. But it's true. It's like, yeah, if he's manipulating other people's stocks and not letting other companies advertise on that he's isn't invested in or has divested from and stuff like that, yeah, that could be a real scary awful thing. But
I
I
mean, it
mean,
makes you also think about like, look, yes, this is a this is Elon Musk running Twitter ain't great, but it also makes you think, well, hey, by the way, we're watching ABC News. They're run by Disney. They have their own sets of issues. We're watching, like this, all these media organizations are run by corporations and all have agendas. And I'm not saying all media is bad. And I'm not turning into that
it is.
guy.
It is though. All media is bad. It's like even CNN has decided. Look, I don't think Wolf Blitzer per se wants fascism to reign over the land. However, uh, the no drama Obama era, CNN and MSNBC were in the tank on ratings. I mean, they weren't doing good because of no drama Obama, and even Fox News had to make a big deal of tan suit. Then comes a shitstorm for 4 years, and everybody was glued to CNN and MSNBC or Fox, or then the rise of Newsmax, the rise of OAN, and now CNN is looking at it saying, "Wow, the hate faction." The chaos theory of we make more money promoting chaos and discourse versus the news, they're really pushing. I mean, it's true. For 4 years, you couldn't not roll over in the middle of the night and check your phone to see if a Kafefi tweet went out there, or did we launch something, or did what insanity happens. And all the major news companies, even MSNBC, is now more and more pushing the whole. I don't want to say pro, Dr. Oz and Herschel Walker, but they're more. It seems like even they're rooting for chaos quite a bit more. And I don't think it's Rachel Maddow making the call, but.
Look, it's a double-edged sword because free speech, unfortunately, encompasses all speech. And we know we know hate speech isn't supposed to be part of free speech, but then it's sort of like, all right, well, I guess we all have to sort of agree on what hate speech is and who regulates this and who's the czar of determining what can and can't be said on which platform, who controls what. So it's kind of like, well, we don't want Elon Musk running Twitter because he's going to fuck everything up because he's got an agenda. Okay. Well, what do you want to do then? Well, I guess we'll have to go to another site. Well, who runs that? A company. Well, who runs the company? I don't know, these people who know computers that have like no agenda. Oh, really? So they don't have any sort of motivation for wanting to draw people to their platform and get eyeballs on an algorithm, and like they don't want that. Like, is that who? That sounds almost. It sounds very socialist, very, very like open ended, where like it's like nobody profits off of the participation of these platforms. So it gets really down to like, okay, well, I guess we need maybe we should have like a governmental body that runs Twitter, or something like that, you know what I mean? So it's kind of like, what's the perfect solution? Well, we all just sort of agree, and or do we all go to or do we all go to our separate bubbles? You got the N-word people and MAGA people on Parler, and you got the limousine liberals and or the crunchy organic guy, like you have the lefties on Tribal or whatever the fuck. and then Twitter is like left in the wind because everybody's picked a side already. They don't want to mix and match. They don't want differing opinions. Like so. Jacques, what I'm trying to ask is, how do we solve this major issue about free speech in
Well,
America and the world? Go.
that's the thing, Joe. It's I don't know how bad it has to get before something happens. So far, guns haven't gotten that bad in the country. We want to do something. Sandy Hook wasn't bad enough. Pulse nightclub wasn't bad enough. The country's Western show in Vegas wasn't bad enough. Unionville, Texas wasn't bad enough. We can't do it because it hasn't. Now, now you have Nancy Pelosi. You had January 6th, and that wasn't bad enough. And now you have people breaking into the House, or the Speaker of the House trying to kill her with her hammer, and that's not bad enough. Like how much hate speech has to go out there on these platforms before somebody says, okay, we have to shut it down, or enough is enough. I don't know. Like, look, I like Twitter. Most of the stuff I follow, is comedians and fun stuff and super sports and stuff like that. But yeah, I am
All right,
concerned.
let me ask you this: if you knew that the owner of a Target, for example, that you frequented, said the N word, right? Would you go back to that Target?
No.
All right. Now, what if you knew that, like, what if you knew more about these owners of these things and what their philosophies are? And where do we draw the line? At some point, do we just sort of like, we have to just know to be better people and promote good things? And
it's funny that you say that, because like I said, I don't listen to sports radio that much at all, sports radio at all anymore. Like 5% of what I did 3 years ago. And one of the two stations in Boston, in the news station, the AM radio news station, as of a few weeks ago, was still running My Pillow ads. And I'm like, wait a minute. This guy is at the epicenter of January 6th. This guy is trying to overturn the government, and you're still letting him advertise on your thing? And I did. I'm like, well, I guess I can't listen to the local AM radio station when I need weather updates or traffic updates anymore. And
dude,
I
think I take a My Pillow ad right now than the onslaught of political ads that we have in the country. I mean, for Christ's sake, I am of a dying breed. I still watch live local TV because I cut the cord, and sometimes I just want to watch the news and watch a rerun of MASH, without having to seek it out. And you're inundated with political ads at this time. So it's kind of like, well, who's letting these people, like, when you're hearing about like how Chris Pappas from New Hampshire is, he votes with Nancy Pelosi 100% of the time, and Joe Biden 98% of the time, and he's going to take away your rights to do this and that. And you're like, wait, this is complete bullshit. Like, yeah, he does that, but these political ads are like lying or very much bending the truth, but they still paid a company to air. And it's just like, okay, well, the station's answer to that is, okay, equal time, like if they're going to pay the, $250 per spot to run this ad on the left side, then we're going to take the same amount of money for the ad wizard on the right side. Or if you're in Idaho, you just get the right side. I mean, just get the one side. I shudder to think what the commercials look like in Idaho.
It's interesting because I got a flyer. It's a second campaign flyer I got from somebody. I'm not going to say their name, but they're running for Congress in the state of Massachusetts as a very red person. And they show them filling their gas tank, like frowning, and you could see like it says $4. The picture was taken a couple months ago because gas prices had come down. It's like, under Joe Biden, it's like, and then in the grocery store, the same thing, the Dr. Oz thing of like, pointing to how much the food cost. It's like, inflation is killing America, and these gas prices are killing. It's like, and the whole time it's like, I'm not going to stand for it. And it's like, not, this is what I'm going to do. You know what I mean? It's like, this is how, and I hear the same ads that you do. And I've been really on the Alexa listening things, just streaming comedy and,
That's why I'm watching We Don't Knock. You
and
know, like that's why.
right. That, and just like, how many times can I listen to Pavement's album? Like, Cricket Rain? Not enough. Because while I'm sitting there like a boss playing Resident Evil 2 at 1 in the morning, like, grown men should be doing, I just can't. Even on Twitter, like the last couple of weeks, it's like I'm just trying to scroll through till I find, oh, here's a movie clip I haven't seen from this movie from 1952 with.
Yeah, I mean, at some point, I like Richard Marx, but I mean, I can't listen to him, call out, people who are, Christian that don't agree with them and are being dicks to him, and like him. Same with Christopher Titus. Like I admire that. Yeah, you have to take these assholes to task. Great. Do I have to see it all the time as I'm looking for other stuff on Twitter? Maybe that's the thing. Maybe there should be categories. Maybe we should start classifying what kind of tweets you have. Like, it's kind of like, today I'm going to go into the room full of political discourse, and then but today and right now maybe I'm going to switch over to my retro gaming channel.
Right. No, I mean, why
filter by category.
This is what I'm hearing.
Let's
why can't it be more like Pornhub? Is what you're saying?
Let's splinter the discourse even further. Let's that's the thing, is that there used to be a thing of like mixed, like not saying bad things in mixed company because you didn't want to offend anybody, and there was an air of like being polite. You don't talk religion and politics because it could be divisive. That's all we talk about on Twitter, it seems. That or whatever like micro subgenre you're into that maybe you share a handful, whether that be retro gaming or burning crosses. Like there's you can get anything you want on these social media platforms. So yeah, there really, the bottom line is Elon Musk running Twitter is going to have its problems. It already has its problems now. And it's like, well, what's the better solution? Like that, like everybody owns Twitter and we all take a piece of the pie.
We become the Green Bay Packers ownership.
Yeah. Pretty much, and look how well they're doing. How many Super Bowls have they landed in the past 30 years?
Look, dude, 20 years of the Patriots dominance. How many Super Bowls did anybody win? It's a fair question. So, all right.
Anyway,
my two questions to you are: do you think shit?
Where's Biff? Biff.
Do you think shit stain comes back? And I hate to ask this, Joe, but I'm going to. By the time this drops, we are 8 days from the election, the midterms, and next week we have that great sideshow with the comedian Jim What. I'm just going to call him Jim What because it's easier because you look at my picture. But
Jim Colleton.
So we will not be chatting on this podcast again before the midterms. How bad do you think it's going to go?
It again, like it's going to be a vote the bum. Look, this is what happens. There's always a midterm correction. We had the blue wave, and that was nice. And now we're going to see it. We're going to see Senators Mehmet Oz and fucking Herschel Walker get sworn in on January 20th with the rest of the assholes. And I think it's not going to be a bloodbath, but it definitely is going to tip right. We're going to lose the Senate. I think. That's because if you look at the polls as to like what people's most pressing issues are, the economy and inflation are like up there. And of course, they're going to ignore the fact that, yeah, when a Democratic president or when the Democrats take over Washington, immediately corporations are going to not be happy. And COVID was like the perfect scapegoat for jacking up prices. And, because of this, there's already like laws in place that favor corporations so that they can price gouge, essentially, quote unquote price gouge, without any repercussions, and they can just sort of blame it on, oh, it's the economy, it's a war in Ukraine, it's the pandemic, it's whatever else we want to blame it on, until we get Republicans back in the control of the of Congress, and then then you'll see, for some reason, Wall Street is being very bullish today, and it's we're seeing an upsurge.
You see, that's what I hate, Joe. It's like Shitstain had it was like a 5-minute press conference, and it very famously on like a hot mic, it was like a CNN reporter said, "Well, that was fucking weird." He came out. He said that the Dow Jones hit 30,000 for the first time ever. And that's a really sacred number. And that's a really, really, this is a really big thing. And then he turned and walked away. Like, came out just to announce, well, Friday it hit 32,000. So that's the thing that upsets me about the corporate media. When you look what Biden has done in 2 years, he has passed more bills in 2 years, and bills to build roads, to build bridges, to build manufacturing jobs here, to bring manufacturing jobs. So we're not beholden on Taiwan, which is the world's leader of chip makers. He has done a bunch of things. The economy is not as bad. Like, unemployment's at a 50-year low. No, they could not get the $15 minimum wage passed, but wages are up. Unemployment is down. And yes, there's a couple inflation, which is global. There's the inflation that we're going through, people in Australia are going through, people in Japan are going through. It's a global inflation. It's not that. And I grant you, people are too stupid to get that. Here's what scares me, Joe, and I fucking mean this. All these pieces of shit coming in there, like Dr. Oz is a foreign agent. He has lobbied in the past on behalf of Turkey, and he voted in the Turkey election. We are going to elect somebody who is a foreign agent of another country. Herschel Walker is brain damaged. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. But that's not what Herschel Walker doesn't scare me. What scares me is Lake, who's going to become governor in Arizona, who already says if a Republican doesn't win 2024, she's not going to certify the election. Her campaigning in 2022 is, I will not certify the election. The guy who's running for governor in Pennsylvania has said the same thing, that the governor of the state decides where the electoral vote goes, not the voters. You vote me in as governor so I can decide where our 19 electoral votes go. When I say I'm worried that this is the last election that we will have, the real election, yes, there's elections every 6 years, I think, in China, and I think there's every 6 years in Russia, where, lo and behold, Putin wins by 98% of the vote. Simultaneously, 2% of the people in Russia get thrown off buildings. I honestly worry that you have all these, that there are 60% of ballots this election have people running for Senate, Congress, governor, lieutenant governor, and attorney general. Like the 5 big things are election deniers who are already saying, yes, we're just like all the anti-abortion, all the forced pregnancy laws that they had ready to go, that they call trigger laws, which, because guns in this country, sure, let's call them trigger laws, that went into effect the day that the Supreme Court overturned Roe versus Wade, like instantly. And there are all these people who already have things on the ballot who are already saying, yep, we're basically going to do away with voting once we're in office. And that's what worries me. Yes, a foreign agent as a senator, yes, that worries me. A brain-damaged football player as a senator, yes, that's what worries me. But what I can't even turn on the TV or listen to the radio the last couple of weeks because my stomach is turning. I truly don't believe it's a sky falling. I believe this is our last fair and free election. Good night, everybody.
Yeah.
Yes, every 2 years, who's ever president, the midterms, it swings the other way. But when the people are in power are already telling you they're running on a platform to make sure that it never swings the other way again, that what I've been saying for the past 30 30 years that we are becoming apartheid, that the white minority, are going to be calling the shots for the next 100 years as the majority slips away because they've already stacked the courts. We don't want Biden to stack the courts. We don't want him to do what we've done the last 30 years, But they're electing people around the country in the states that matter. California doesn't fucking matter for the president election. New York doesn't fucking matter, Arkansas doesn't matter because there are certain states that are going to vote the way they're going to vote. But the 8 or 9 swing states are now up for grabs in the hands of people who said, no matter what happens in 2024, if I'm governor, I'm giving the state to whoever is on the ticket. When shit stain is running with Marjorie Taylor Greene, which is the new rumor that, she's going to be his vice president candidate. Yes, we either vote for them or you don't vote at all.
Yeah, right. So it'll be fun.
Anyways,
Anyway.
I'm sorry, Joe. I'm sorry. So
Right.
that must be the last podcast ever because I'm going to dig a hole in the backyard and hide in it
Nice.
forever. Let's get back on track. I was hoping Biv was here because a lot of hockey stuff happened this week, but I don't want to skip over gaming. What is going on in your gaming world, Joe?
Not much. I'm just playing that Lego Skywalker saga game, and that's about it.
Last
Fine.
we tuned in, you were 20% into the game when it crashed.
Yeah.
Where are you now?
I think I'm halfway through it, and I've so I've finished the entire cycle of episode stories. So now it's like all free play where you can go back and it's like a collectathon and you go on the side mission. So you can chip away at that and have a good time.
And are you going to 100% this game?
Maybe. I don't know. It seems it seems doable, but I'm not gonna, quit my day job to, put that time and effort into it. So I don't know. Maybe I'll get bored with it and move on. I have so many games, as you can see behind me. I have
Yes.
so many games to get to
Well,
before I'm kicked out of my house.
if the apocalypse happened and you get power, there'd be time now.
Yes.
But let's hope your glasses don't break because
You know what? They might.
so I wanted to talk like a little, I'm bummed that, Biv's not here because, I wanted to throw this out there. I wanted to ask him, Phil Kessel, who's one of those, you love him or you hate him and kind of guys, he's bounced around the NHL, just broke the record for the Ironman, the most games played in a row. And a lot of people are poo-pooing that. On one hand, dude, just the travel to not miss a game in I think it's like 13 seasons. It's a crazy number how many games he has played in a row. It's like 1,100, something like that. But there was one game where he flew from point A to point B, played one shift, played like a 30-second shift to keep the streak going. But then again, Carl Ripken had done the same thing. I was friends with, I was friendly with, our friend Ross has been on the podcast. One of his close childhood friends was the assistant GM at the time of the Orioles. And there was a lot of people who were like, him going for this record is hurting the team. Like at that point of the time, he should have been a DH. He should not have been the everyday shortstop for. But I think the thinking was, well, if we get him out of there, we're only going to miss the playoffs by 18 games. With him in there, we're going to miss the playoffs by 22 games. So let him get the record. His father was coach forever. His brother Fuckface was on the team. And you know that story. So let him go for the record. So, I was interested really to get Biff's take on that. The other funny thing, as it relates to our 4 listeners, our good friend, the blind squirrel, was calling out Bruin player. The Bruins came out of the gates winning like 4 out of the first 5 games. And our friend, the blind squirrel, was saying, yeah, but Taylor Hall has been invisible this whole time. And they picked him up last year at the trade deadline, and he had a decent season. And he was, big things were expected. And Blind Squirrel called him out on our thread. The next 4 games in a row, he was either first star of the game or top 3 stars of the game. And I don't know if the Bruins recognize that by our friend calling him out on our little text group must have been the catalyst for Taylor Hall turning his season around. And I think they should make him part of the the coaching group. But that's me. But I don't know if you have a theory on it because you were on that group, but you usually don't jump in too much on it.
No, I have nothing on that. Nothing.
Okay, so we'll get into what are you watching?
What am I watching? I finished Cobra Kai.
Dude, the best.
Yeah, doesn't disappoint.
Do you kind of want this to be it? Because my little guy who was the catalyst behind us watching it and loved it. We watched it as a family. It took so long because of our schedule because he really wanted to watch it with his mom and I. And even he's like, they sewed it all up. They tied up all the loose ends. Not really. They left a couple things open, but yeah, I'd be okay. I like it. I loved the ending.
Yeah, no, it's definitely it's already been announced that they're doing a season 6, and that will be the final season. So I'm not disappointed going into this knowing that there was going to be a definitive final season after it. I like where they took it. I thought the very end thing was a little silly, but I forgive everything on this show because they do everything so well. They lean into all of the cheesiness. They walk that line between stupid and great. And there's a fine line between brilliant and stupid, and
Dude,
they walk it.
It was, we don't know who's going to watch it, so we won't talk. We'll talk spoilers in a month or so. But I will just say, at one point, finally, one of the adults at one point finally took their phone out of their pocket and said, "I'm calling the police." like this show could have lasted 4 episodes, and one person just calls the police and says, "Hey, this is going on. Come down and fix this."
No, but they all have to take it upon themselves to dole out justice as they see fit.
What was awesome is, so my 12-year-old who loves it squishy, we were driving back from a Halloween party the other day, and we were talking about it. And then I tailored him. I John C. tailored him by asking very leading questions under a deposition. And I said to him, because he hasn't had this moment yet. I'm like, hey, who was the bad guy in how many Karate Kid movies was Tony Russo in? He goes, 3. I'm like, oh, right. Who was the bad guy in the first one? Oh, that was Johnny. Who was the bad guy in the second one? And he's like, oh, they went to Japan. Oh, that was Chosen. I'm like, right. Hey, who was the bad guy in the third one? And then he was like, oh my God, it finally hit him that the 4 of those guys are in a car together, and it's like the one bonding thing is those other 3 guys at one point or another try to kill, Daniel LaRusso.
I don't know about kill.
Oh no, Chosen wanted to kill him.
That's true.
Chosen was going to fight him to the death and stuff like that.
How great is Chosen, by the way?
Dude. The phone call that he makes outside of the bar, you know what I mean? It's like, he's wise, he's worldly, he has wisdom that goes back centuries, still can't. Yeah, he still can't close the deal. Which was, look, I loved it. It was very satisfying. Like I said, I'm happy. I'm not bummed there's going to be a season 6, but I think it's like, okay, if you want to tie up a couple more loose ends, great. But I was very happy, and it's awful. The show is awful, and it's awesome at the same time.
Let's also give a shout out to our boy Stingray.
Oh, dude,
Stingray! It's just so like his little shining moment was perfect.
It was everybody got the new girl who had that moment of, okay, here's your time to make your decision here,
shoes aside kind of thing. Yeah.
I will say there's a moment in as the fight wound down between Miguel and
Robbie.
Robbie on the balcony, where I'm like, no, 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 no. I had so much anxiety. And then when Johnny tells him what's going on, their reaction, dude, that made me really happy. It just, it filled me with goodness in a shitstorm of a world.
By the way, as an older straight white male, I find it a lot more confusing nowadays to like watch episodes with like supposed teenagers, some of them female, lounging by a pool in, in swimwear, for an obvious, for the obvious reasons that they're being shown lounging by the pool in swimwear. And I'm Googling like, okay, she's 22. Okay, she's 23.
Right,
Okay, she's
right.
24.
It's like, oh no, it's like I don't want to, or look, hey, truth be told, oh thank goodness he's 23. Oh thank goodness he's, because it used to be like, okay, Phoebe Cates was Phoebe Cates on that diving board, but Judge Reinhold was a frumpy, but now all of these guys, like, wait, the D-list character, whatever, the nerd, quote unquote, like, he's ripped like Jesus.
Yeah, I know.
When you see like, wait, Hawk is ripping an 8-pack. It's like,
Right.
and as you said, I'm walking that thinking, well, as a primarily straight white guy, I want to check out to make sure that these guys are old enough. But yeah, I'm that old now where I'm like, yeah, I don't want to see that. Can we just, we don't need to see. Boop, 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 boop,
Yeah, I know. It's like, put a shirt on,
The boys love when I say that because I'm the old guy. If I'm driving down the street and somebody's just walking like with their, jeans with their shirt hanging out of the back pocket, I'm like, oh, he must be allergic to shirts. Put a shirt. I don't actually yell out the window, but I yell to myself, put a shirt on.
Right. At least we're not Bill Cosby and saying pull your pants up. That's that's what we call
so Cobra Kai. The other thing that I've it's great. Look, dude, I'm biased. I get it. I'm biased. But the Jedi Tales, which is a new bunch of animated shorts,
yep,
which is backstories. Like the last 2 episodes I watched with the Squishy, Count Dooku's backstory, and it's without giving too much away, it's like we're introduced to the great actor Christopher Lee as Count Dooku, as being this Jedi turned Sith, and he's an asshole, and he is, and he's awful. But these stories are like, yeah, but this is kind of what was going on with the Jedi Order at the time that kind of drove them that way. And they're making these evil characters, like, the whole thing. It's like, it's like,
well, yeah, I mean, I was listening to a podcast not too long ago, talking about the Phantom Menace. And, I mean, it's stating the obvious, but me not living in the Star Wars universe 24/7, it doesn't dawn on me. But it's like, yeah, the Jedi were portrayed as like real do-nothing elitist assholes that just sort of like took their power for granted, and they got a little too big for their britches, let's just say.
Yeah, well, that's what and it's painting Count Dooku. They have to go rescue this senator's son from these people who kidnapped his son, and all of a sudden, like, the son is like, yeah, these people should have kidnapped me to get his attention. My dad's fucking awful. Look at how he's living in this wealth, and they're in poverty, and he's been in incentive for. And I almost opened my mouth to start explaining the Stockholm syndrome to my 12-year-old. It's like, well, there was this girl named Patty Hearst who was abducted, but I'm like, yeah, there's a bit of Stockholm syndrome going on there. But it's right, it's one of those things. And then when the Jedi come to free him, and then that's when Dooku has the moment. It's like, it's there's another Jedi with him, and they have this whole debate. When the townspeople bring that up, it's like they see the Senate as being corrupt, and that the Jedi are just the muscle of the corrupt senators. And well, here you see it. This senator's been the longest serving Senate, the capital. It's like Any of those things. The Hunger Games. It's like
Yeah.
Division One or whatever one versus the people starving out in like Sector 9 or something like that. It's like so they're representing me, but they're big fat fucks living high off the hog, and we are truly starving to death. And the Jedi are here to beat us up.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
we're the bad guys.
Yeah, they're the cops for the Senate. Yeah, it's weird. One thing I did want
Sounds
to
good.
one thing I did want to mention, speaking of watching things, and I didn't tell you about this until just now. I finally saw 1979's classic Heaven Can Wait.
Oh, dude, why? What? Oh,
Ah,
you didn't tell me that till now because I would have spent 90% of the podcast talking about this. Oh, and your thoughts?
that's a perfectly fine movie. I liked it. Um, it was nice seeing, Brian Gumble make a little guest appearance.
Right? Very young Brian Gumble.
Yeah, but it was the cast of, I mean, Buck Henry, who co-wrote or co-directed the movie rather, as the fuck up angel. James Mason and obviously Warren Beatty, Diane
You
Cannon,
have
and
to
Charles
say his
Grodin.
name like this.
Charles Mason. We've made a mistake. You have to go back. We've looked all over, and we've looked at every possible athlete that we could imagine. All the white ones, of course. We wouldn't dare consider a black athlete because and it would be kind of a Get Out situation if we did that. No, it was a fine movie. It was weird. Diane Cannon was just very like just awful from the beginning, like just like an awful person. But I liked Warren Beatty's sort of like plain guy delivery. Like he sold it well.
Yeah.
And then Jack Warner.
You keep your eye on that Warren Beatty. I think he's gonna make something of himself.
Oh, is it Jack?
Yeah.
Is it Jack Warner? Am I getting his name right?
Not Jack Dallas.
The shit. The
Right,
guy.
right. I see his face.
He's got the mustache.
Yep.
He's the guy who's the trainer that he confides in. Like that's the thing about these sort of like secret identity movies and shows is I love watching the person who's hiding in another person's body trying to convince somebody that they're them, and like here's the clue, like here's me playing the saxophone, here's me giving you fixing your back, that kind of like only things that he would know kind of things. I'm a sucker for those types of moments. So all in all, and I was like, okay, this is Quantum Leap. Now I get what Quantum Leap was based on.
Well, and I'll dates back to that movie that I was talking about, like that 1946 English movie where it's the first time you see the escalator going up, and it's the first time
although there was no escalator in Heaven Can Wait.
But there is the whole you weren't supposed to be here, or you say let's have it's great. I'm glad you watched it. That's great. I'm happy as a little girl. Mike Myers.
What? It was leaving whatever platform it was on, and it was like movies that are just about to go. You better act fast. I'm like, oh no, Jacques will be mad at me if I don't watch Heaven Can Wait. I have to.
Yeah. I'll be mad at you for other things, but that's one. Let me hold on. Let me get out the list.
Yeah.
Okay, cross off. He hasn't seen Heaven Can Wait, and hit me with a parenting tip.
Oh my goodness. Well, gee whiz. Biff's so much better at these. Maybe I can give a parenting tip as Biff.
Okay, let's have it.
If I can't do Biff's voice. I don't know. Like if your kid's going to be on your car insurance, make sure he's able to pay for that car insurance on his own.
Make sure he can drive.
All right, make sure that he drives, and that he's not drinking when he's driving. That's Biff's parenting tip. I don't know.
So my parenting tip, doozy here. Be careful what you wish for. Just be careful what you wish for, because
if I had one wish,
look, the crap with the kids, logistics, it's not going to happen. But here's the deal. Let me break it down. Give you the skinny. Update you. I've been doing jiu-jitsu again. I've been doing jiu-jitsu with my 15-year-old. I'm doing jiu-jitsu with my 15-year-old who's 40 pounds heavier than I was when I played junior hockey. I'm doing jiu-jitsu with my 15-year-old who is all chest, shoulders, and arms. That mother almost beat me the other day. Like, literally. We are grappling. And I didn't want to start on the ground because, like, I'll be honest, I didn't want to go on the ground. I just wanted to throw him on the ground and have it be like, you know, a wrestling thing more than an on the ground grappling thing because I didn't want to go down. You know, so I'm like, no, because usually you start down. It took everything. It's like pound for pound, he is just a bull. Like I said, it's all shoulders and it's arms. And, you know, on one hand, from the neck up, he cannot do a push-up, plank, or pull-up to save his life, you know, because he doesn't think he can. But when you're actually, and it's funny because he came for the Halloween party we had a couple weeks ago again, our friend from college, Sleeves, Cornbread, Bill Tendo, came over. And I was giving him a little tour of the house. He has these two sweet daughters, 8 and 6, 9 and 7, something like that. And I was saying, well, let me show you the difference between a house where you're raising two uncaged animals, because there's holes in every wall. There's a break. And I'm in one room. I'm like, yeah, see that hole in that door? That wasn't there last week. He was fighting with his brother. And my oldest didn't like me, you know, pointing out that our house is destroyed for his shenanigans. Comes in the room and starts throwing these. He's joking, but he's throwing what's called a switch kick. And luckily, I know how to block it and absorb the kick. And my buddy from college is just looking at me like, "What the fuck is going on?" And then, you know, when he charged me, it's like, you know, it's like, look, just because I taught him everything he knows didn't mean I taught him everything I know. And I was able to spin him, you know, take him down and, like, you know, do this thing called side control so he couldn't. And then we're like laughing about it. My friend is horrified. It's like, this is how you interact with your children. Like, somebody should be calling DSS or social services for elder care, depend who's winning the fight. But my parenting tip is be careful because, you know, it's like, yeah, I've been pushing him, dude, you have to do this. You have to stick with it. And now we're at the tipping point, you know, because I had always said to him, you know, how long do we have to do this? Why do we have to do this? This is stupid. Dude, the day you can keep me from putting you in the car, you don't have to go anymore. So we might not be having to go to jiu-jitsu much longer.
Hey, you know, he's saving a couple bucks, I'm sure.
Oh, dude. Well, Biff, thank you for jumping on. It's, as always, this has been a pleasure yapping with you, but I'm done for the day.
Yes, and thank you, Joe, for coming on. It's always been a pleasure. This is hey, all you birds. This is Biff talking to you. No, I'm not really Biff. I'm Joe, your friend for life. Whose life? Man, who could say? But I do love each and every one of you, and thank you so much for listening, taking time out of your day. You could be listening to literally anything else. You could be listening to the emergency broadcast system on a loop for an hour straight, and it would be more entertaining than what you just heard. But you chose us, and for that we are forever humble. So follow us for now on Twitter. We already, I think we're on Facebook, right? Are we on Facebook as Carnival Personnel Podcast or Carnival Podcast? Who the hell knows? Who cares? If you want to hear Jacques, ramble about, I don't know. You don't really tweet much. I don't know. I don't know what you do on Twitter under the Carnival Podcast moniker. I think you just replied to like people who post videos of Johnny Carson clips and just tag me in them and say, we got to add this to the list, or wasn't this great, or this is the top 5 Johnny Carson segment ever. And then I have to heart it and, just, yes, I agree. I see you. That's very nice. That was a very nice tweet that you included me on. Thank you. Everybody should have a friend like Jacques on Twitter. And you probably, if you're listening, you do have a friend like Jacques on Twitter because he follows you and you him. So on that note, Jacques, don't forget.
time. Bye bye blackbird bye, a kidney for an eye. Pepsi's on a tear, we're constant off the air. There's no one left to keep her safe. 3 years of metro down the train. Busy knows it's true, but there's nothing he can do. Crying Jacques and kids, look out, Elvis Pepsi lives. She's all washed up to go. She showered in her clothes. She'll be out all night till dawn, with the tinted goggles on. Pepsi's on a tear, carting off the air. There's no one left to keep her sane. 3 years of metro down the drain. Busy knows she should go, but the hospital said no. Crying Jacques and flour, she's getting weird about the hour. Pepsi's on a tear.